Authentic Talks is all about authentic conversations. This show is all about growth, love, respect, success, mind, body, and spirit. If you're looking to grow and become your authentic self, then this is the podcast for you. And I am your host, Shantae. Welcome to the show. Hi guys, we're back. I'm excited this week. I had the pleasure of sitting down with the renowned energy healer, best-selling author, and the creator of the original Screen Pillow. She has released another amazing tool designed to help to create a better life. It's called My Sacred Journal. And this is an interactive journal where you and I can find a place to share our hopes, our dreams, and desires. I think you guys are going to enjoy this show. Self-care is important to her, and she is using her tools to help others begin their self-help journey and eliminate stress. We all need to have that happen for us. Eliminate that stress. Please welcome the author of My Effing Long Journey to Loving Myself, A Guide to a Shorter Path, MARLA GOLDBERG. Hi, MARLA. Welcome to Authentic Talks. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Shantae. I am having a marvelous day. So no complaints.
Well, we're excited to have you here on Authentic Talks, and we're just going to go ahead and dive on in. Can I have you introduce yourself to the audience, please?
Absolutely. So I'm Marla Goldberg. I'm an energy healer, intuitive. I'm a best-selling author, and I'm coming out with my second book on July 1st. It's going to be launched. It's a journal to support the book, My Effing Long Journey to Loving Myself, A Guide to a Shorter Path. I'm the host of Guided Spirit Conversations podcast. And I am a managing partner of the Global Consciousness Summit and the Global Consciousness Development Circle.
Wow, you have your hands full. Congratulations on your book coming out on July 1st. And we're definitely going to talk all about that and how you were led to that path of writing. Can you share with everyone exactly what is an energy healer?
So what I do is I work with my clients in removing blocks, programs, interferences that can be brought on by current life situations or past life situations. Everything is made of energy, absolutely everything. And so what happens is, I'm going to talk about current life. So in this current life, you could have been judged, criticized, made fun of, taunted, teased, abused, and it really affects your energy. It affects you as a person psychologically. It affects the energy. And so what can happen is you might find yourself feeling ill, feeling sluggish, feeling like your life doesn't have trajectory. Your career might not have trajectory. And the purpose of this could be, again, from what you experienced in your life, in this body, or it could be brought in from past lives into this life because they weren't dealt with. The issues weren't dealt with when they happened. So as an energy healer, I work with everybody to try to get them to what I call the sweet spot of life.
Wow, that's really awesome. You have an inspiring story of hitting a rock bottom and you were able to build your way back up through your life's purpose. Can you share with us?
Absolutely. After making many, many decisions that didn't serve me, one of the biggest decisions that didn't serve me was the marriage to my first husband. And this is a man I had known since I was 18 years old. When I was 18, he was this amazing guy. He was funny, he was considerate, kind, etc. But when I married him, he had gotten involved in drugs and alcohol. When, with his first wife, he sobered up to a point. He stopped the drugs, but I didn't know a lot about alcohol and alcoholics and alcohol abuse because I wasn't around it a lot. So we got together and he brought his two kids into our relationship very, very early, like on the second date. And
Wow.
I saw their dysfunction, right? It was quick. And I saw their dysfunction and my heart just broke for them because the youngest one at 9 years old could barely read, could barely write. He couldn't hold a pencil. His hygiene was deplorable. And I just couldn't walk away from the kid. So as things progressed, even though his drinking bothered me because he got mean when he got drunk, but couldn't walk away from the children. So I went through the relationship and tried the best we can to make it, I could make it a happy, functional relationship. Everyone went to therapy. He went to rehab, he had to go to AA and all of that. But at a certain point, it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And I became like a deer in headlights. I was so depressed by my life and what was going on in it. There was no recognition of what I was doing to try to get everybody on the right track. My husband didn't seem to really care about wanting to have happy memories with this family. He was still feeling guilt and shame over his relationship with his first wife. And what I found out is, he would tell people things that weren't true about me. At one point, I just got incredibly depressed. At one point, I had thought I had a heart attack. I was having a heart attack. I went to the hospital by myself because he wouldn't get up. It was just the start of this year. It was 2003. And I became so depressed I couldn't move. And I went to a women's conference. And at this women's conference, I met a woman who was talking about how to heal yourself. And I'm like, well, gee, I've got to look into that because nothing else I've done worked. So I went to this conference. I listened to her speak. She resonated with me on so many levels, and I ended up joining her school. Now, I didn't realize when I joined the school, I was joining a mystery school. I was joining an energy healing school. And I just wanted to learn how to heal myself. And it was through these 3 years that I not only learned how to heal myself, I learned how to heal others as well in learning 14 modalities. And when I left school, I just thought, I'll use this for friends and for myself. I'm not going to do this professionally. But I kept taking classes and more classes and more classes. And all of a sudden, I'm divorced from my first husband. I'm now dating my second husband-to-be. And we get married and we're in a hotel room. And I hear this big booming voice tell me that I have to start a practice, that I have to start helping people. And I thought it was my husband, even though my husband doesn't actually wrap his arms around what he didn't at the time around what I do. But I woke up in a start and I woke him up and it's like, what did you say? And I told him the story and we talked about it. And that led me to opening up a practice.
Wow. That's really awesome. I love it.
It's something I never thought that I was going to do.
And what's amazing is that it is addictive. Once you start going to school and you're learning, and you do keep going back and taking more and more classes, and you find yourself not able to stay away, especially with the type of schooling that you had, when it's evolving like energy healing, and sometimes there's like yoga and just all of the different elements in that.
The amazing thing about spirituality or energy work or even metaphysics is there are so many modalities, and people are being downloaded techniques to develop their own modalities, which you add to it. So there are, I would venture to guess, thousands of different modalities out there. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, they start with roots of something that has been old and ancient and sacred, but there's so many. And so, you want to learn. For me, I just want to keep learning because there's so many things out there. I just met a gentleman who designed sacred geometry, and it's amazing artwork. And I have him on my show as a guest, and I want to learn more about sacred geometry so I am able to talk to him on his level about the meanings of the shapes and what it does and how it works for meditation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's something that, geometry, sacred or not, has never been a strength of mine.
Mine either. Yeah. So much respect to him. I mean, because it is something that I will definitely be tuning in to hear that show.
And I just took a class on quantum boundaries, which was phenomenal, by Dr. Susan Rossi. And I learned a little bit about quantum. She also explained it in very bite-sized nuggets where you can understand and explain how she explained. And you just can and it's like, I got it. The light bulb went on. This is quantum boundaries. And it talks about energetic boundaries.
Oh.
And how to stay balanced and centered so all your boundaries are aligned and attuned.
Oh, it sounds really interesting. How has being around like positive people helped influence your path to bettering your life?
Wow, that's a great question. Hey, you've been around negative people. You've been around people who are energy suckers, or they call them energy vampires.
Yes.
Okay. And when you walk away from that, you feel really bad and you feel down. And usually they're the ones who will say, talk in the negative. Everything is in the negative. And they look at everything as your cup half empty.
Yes.
So, so what does that do? It acts like an anchor and it sort of like drags you down. But when you're around positive people with positive outlooks, then they lift you up and if you pay attention, you're like, oh, wait, I get it. And it also is part of the law of attraction and vibration. Lower vibration will will pull you down, where higher vibrations will lift you up. Just like if you're running on a high vibrational, like those, you wake up one morning and you're dancing, you're singing, you feel great, your vibration's really high. Well, things will meet you at that high vibration. And things and people meet you where you are. So if your vibration is high, they're going to meet you at that higher level. If your vibrations are low, they'll meet you at that lower level. Just like anybody who walks around like Henny Penny, the sky is falling, they're going to meet you down at that lower level. Your experiences, your people.
What do you do? Avoid or combat that? How do you protect your energy when you are in an environment where you're surrounded by those energy sucking vampires? Because we can't seem to escape them. There's a lot of high vibing people in society today, but there's always, those elements of the people who can't see the glass half full, like you said, and they're just always in that state of mind. How do you deal with that?
So first of all, I would suggest putting protection around you before you get out of bed. And so you can do something like, one of the things I do is do you remember those Russian nesting dolls? Do you know what those are?
No, I don't.
They're little wooden dolls that one doll goes into another, which goes into another. They split in half.
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay, so if you visualize 3 circles around you, one bigger than the other, like the nesting dolls, and ask for protection, and then ask that you set the intention that anybody's energy that, that doesn't resonate with you or doesn't belong on you or with you, that they can't get through the barriers. And that's a really important thing to do, especially if you're in a big crowded city or you're going to a family event like Thanksgiving or Christmas or any of those holidays, Easter, where, you get a lot of family together. And as you know, not all families vibe at the same. There's usually a little bit of controversy.
Yes.
And so you protect yourself. The other thing you can do, if you know you're running into a situation that is potentially negative or is draining, is and where they project things on you, visualize a one-sided mirror and just ask that anything that doesn't belong to you goes back to who the originator is tenfold. So
I love it.
And that means is if somebody's going to project jealousy or, something negative towards you, criticism, judgment, that, the energy should hit the mirror, go back to the person who sent it to you and keep you clean.
Oh, I love that. I have not heard that before. It's the first time I've heard it.
Well, that's good. And then it adds to your toolbox.
Yes, it does. I absolutely love that. I know that you actually are into self-care.
Yes.
And can you share with our audience how to best begin a self-care journey that will last? Oftentimes we've been hearing about it, self-care, way more often than we did. It's coming up a lot, especially with COVID-19 and all of the things that we've been going through.
And you're right. People are more focused on self-care now because when we were self-isolating or being socially mindful of other people, which means to me being socially considerate of other people, because you don't know if somebody is a questionable immune system or what's going on in their life. And if you go out and you're careless, how would you feel if you knew that you were one of the carriers that didn't have symptoms and you made someone not only ill, but it took their life? I mean, somebody would feel pretty guilty about that. But self-care, going back to self-care, it's more prevalent now because we can't really work out at gyms. We can't do the things we used to do. So first of all, mental health. It's really important to keep yourself looking at positive things. If you're going to watch TV, watch comedies. Don't watch kill 'em, bang 'em up things. Don't watch the news. Oh my God. If you have to watch the news because you want to stay informed, pick a time of day that you need to watch it, but don't do it before you go to bed. Don't make that the time before you go to sleep. First thing in the morning, maybe at lunchtime, if you have to drive your car. And the reason I say that is because you want to stay healthy mentally. And when you watch those killing TV shows and movies, it brings you down. And in addition to that, you want to keep your mental health up by talking to people, socializing. Look, we've got Zoom, we have Skype, we have WhatsApp, we have FaceTime. There's no reason you can't have a conversation and actually see somebody these days, unless you choose not to.
Mm-hmm.
And so that helps you keep your mental feeling up, like you're not as isolated. I mean, there are many people who live by themselves who haven't seen or felt somebody's touch in months, and it's very, very challenging for them. And so by doing FaceTime, Skype, it's and just as good as looking, having those between the window conversations with people, where they stand in front of the mirror or the window, not the mirror, the window or the door, and they have signs and they have, you're on the phone and talking to them while seeing them. It's important to keep your self-care up with that. Moving, find a way to move. Go out and take a walk. It keeps your vibe high when you do these things. That's why self-care is so important, to keep you healthy and keep your vibe high. The other thing too is when you don't do self-care, or some people say it's like dieting. Well, I hit my goal, so now I'm going to go back to my old ways. Well, all you're going to do is gain your weight back and then feel bad about yourself. That's why it's really important to keep self-care up daily. Meditation, chanting, journaling. Again, moving is really important. All these things are just so important to keep your mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual self up. And with YouTube, there's so many classes you can learn on YouTube. You can learn art. You can learn a different language. You can learn about energy healing, a variety of modalities. You can learn how to tune a car. But, everything is on
YouTube nowadays. You're absolutely right. How have you been feeling about not being able to travel as much? Do you travel? Before COVID-19, did you do a lot of traveling?
Yes, I did a lot of traveling. And as I mentioned before the show, I was supposed to go to Arizona and everything was starting to close down. It was around the 15th of March and everything was starting to close down and I was pushing to go and finally, it just came. I just hit a board where it's like, okay, it's not a good idea to travel. It's not a good idea to get on a plane and be in a hotel, and all the restaurants were closing. So I decided to put this off until things changed, whenever that might be. I have traveled. It has been interesting because in the airports, most of the restaurants are closed. There are just a few little outlets when you're on the plane. They don't give you anything to eat or drink. I mean, people bring on their own, but it's one of those where you lift your mask, take a drink, put your mask down. Again, you're in an incubator. It's almost like a petri dish in a way. Be really, really careful out in public. We take wipes with us. We wipe down our seats. We wipe down the armrests. We wipe down the buckles, the pocket in front of us when we're on the plane. We take great, great, great precautions when we travel. And again, not just for us, but for the person near us, for the person who might come on the plane after us. Though the airlines are supposed to clean, I just want to make sure it's a little extra clean.
I understand. So you know what I've done, Marla?
What?
I started dancing.
Isn't it great? What kind of dance?
Just to music, just moving my body. Sometimes it's not even about for me, a specific type dance, but I don't know. I just move my hands above my head. It feels so good though. After I'm doing it for a while, and to my 8-year-old, he thinks that I'm just doing almost like the hokey pokey where you turn yourself around. So he puts his hands above his head and he starts doing it too and spinning around. And I'm like, yay. And then I just really start to feel really good. And I'm like, wow, that was actually really fun. So I've been implementing that in my life, more frequently. And I absolutely love it. It makes me feel so good. When I'm done, I'm like, wow, I feel amazing. Let me go in here and clean the dishes and and get this meal on the stove so we can eat. So it's been kind of nice.
It's wonderful. And see what you're doing when you dance. First of all, the music raises your vibe, the movement raises your vibe, and it also releases a lot of things as well as getting your blood circulating, which is important for every organ in your body. But it feels great. And it reminds me of, have you ever heard of ecstatic dance?
I think I have. I haven't looked into it. It's something that I've seen written somewhere or something.
So ecstatic dance is just moving as you feel, as the music makes you feel. So there's no, there's no dance steps. You just move, and if you want to, like dance around, like run around your house with your arms flying and moving and bending and twisting, and it's amazing. It's again, mental, physical, and spiritual well-being. It just really helps you get there.
I definitely agree. So then that means that I've been doing ecstatic dance.
That's it.
Yeah.
Ecstatic dance.
Wow. So I want to talk about beginning a spiritual journey and how to take steps to make it last.
Well, I'm going to go backwards first. Anything, you make it last by doing it. If you stop doing it, you don't make it last. Again, it's the same thing with, bodybuilders. When they stop working out, what happens to their body? All their definition eventually goes away. It's the same thing with a spiritual journey. It's something that it's incorporated into your day on a daily basis. It's not something you do sporadically, like you might get on a kayak sporadically. You really need to, incorporate your practice into your day, like brushing your teeth and washing your face and taking a shower. Now, going back to the beginning, how do you start a sacred practice or a sacred journey? Well, it depends where everybody is. Everybody starts where they are, right? I mean, there's no, you have to be here, there, or the other place. But you need to, I would say, start with doing a gratitude program, starting a practice of gratitude. Because gratitude changes your perspective. And even people who think, what do I have to be grateful for? I don't have a job. I don't have this. I don't have that. I don't have the other thing. But do you have a toothbrush? Do you have toothpaste? Do you have clothes on your back? Do you have a roof over your head? Do you have a job? If you can't find anything to be grateful for, start at the lowest denominator. I'm grateful I have water to wash my face. I'm glad I have soap to wash my face. I'm grateful that I have a towel to dry my face, etc. And then what you'll find is that, I'm grateful for the sun. I'm grateful for summertime and these beautiful lush trees or cactus, depending upon where you live.
Yes.
Birds, things like that.
Yes. Those cactuses, I know you've been here to Arizona. They're in some places, they are tall. I love, like, when we're traveling through the state, I will say, pull over. There's a cactus and it has to be unique. And then I will get out the car and go take a picture next to it.
How great is that? It's
So
wonderful. But going back to the spiritual journey, prayer. Prayer is really, to me, it's vital. I pray every morning. I pray when I walk my dog. So in my prayer practice is my gratitude practice. And then I go into, different areas where I ask Spirit for what I want, because Spirit doesn't have free will. Spirit has to be called in to help you, because you have free will. And if you have to go through the challenge on your own, then they're going to let you. And sometimes even when you call in, it's for your best and highest good, for whatever the growth is of the circumstance you're going through. Because everything is, as I call, a stepping stone to growth. So those are a few tidbits on how to start a journey. Meditation, whether you do it in the morning or in the afternoon, that's up to you. You can do it twice a day. You can do it 3 times a day. It's up to you. It grounds you, it centers you, and you feel so different once you meditate.
I definitely agree. I love practicing gratitude and mindfulness, and I love journaling and all of that. And I do agree. Meditating is amazing. I'm excited to talk about your book, the title of it. Like, how did you come up with the title? Let's talk about that, like the journey behind your book.
So, my effing long journey to loving myself, a guide to a shorter path. Actually, I was talking to a friend of mine, and been writing the book. In the beginning of the book, I was just doing automatic writing because I had no idea what I needed to write about, what I was supposed to write about. So automatic writing is when you go into a meditation and you have a pen and paper nearby, and as soon as you come out of it, before you're fully, awake, you just take and you just start writing what comes. And you write and you write and you write. And I was doing that. And I was doing that for about 3 weeks. When I finally read back what I was writing, and then I decided I needed to type it into my computer because I already had a notebook full. And so it was like doing it twice. But what I realized is that it was my life story. And each time I went over my story, I would hear a download of, no, add this. Oh, you need to do it this way. Da, 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 da. And it's like, okay. And so that's how I formulated the book. And how the name came to be is I was sharing the story with my girlfriend of what I just shared with you. And she goes, well, what are you going to call it? I said, I don't know, but it's my fun long journey to loving myself, a guide to a shorter path. And so that's how it came about. That's how it stuck.
I was like, talk about authentic talks. Talk about an authentic title of a book. I was like, wow. Yeah, that's awesome. How long did it take you to write your book?
It took me about 6 months, but I really put focused time. I made sure that I didn't put it down because it's very easy to say, I'll get to it later, I'll get to it later, I'll get to it later. So I time blocked and made sure that I got my book, typing in my book every day, at least 5 days a week, and for a minimum of an hour. And there were sometimes up to 3-4 hours. And then, of course, you have to go back and there's the editing. And like I said, the Spirit would give me a message like, oh, no, do this, or no, do that. Like, for example, here's my story. So big deal. What about it? I mean, yes, I, had dysfunction and I had stuff. I came out of it, and I'm telling people how to do it, but how do I really make this more valuable? So I added the tips, tools. I was guided to add the tips, tools, and techniques that I used and still use to shift my life and to continue, because look at it, you're no matter how spiritual one is, you're still going to have the human experience. There's going to possibly be conflicts, depression, things not going right, whatever it might be. So you still need to do the work because otherwise it builds up again. And so that's how I got the tips and tools and techniques, as I call the 3 T's in the back of the book. And then I was guided to, as you're reading the book, you'll see a part of my story. And then I put inside of it, if I had these tools then, this is prior to knowing the tools, or these are the tools I actually used because, I didn't have this till later in life. And if I would have had these tools in my 20s, oh my God, would life have been different?
Oh, yeah. We weren't taught about those things growing up in my household. I'm grateful that they have people in the world that learn and share their teachings and then help other people to get there.
Well, my goal is, it's very much like the story I told you about the children I adopted. My goal is to make everybody else's journey shorter than mine was. Because if they can get it and they do it, and it's work and it's not easy work. But if you do it and you release, your anger, your frustration, your stress, your bitterness on some people's parts, you learn to forgive others and yourself. It brings you into more of self-acceptance, even though there are exercises to really get you in there. And when you can truly accept yourself for who you are, good and bad, both sides, the duality of life or shadows, you'll find that you can love yourself fully, as I like to say, warts, wrinkles, and all.
Yes, we were talking about how the sun burns, your skin and stuff like that. So when you said that, it took me back to that for a split second. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, and so you are a public speaker as well. Tell me about that. How did you get into public speaking?
It's the next step. I've got my podcast, I've got my books, and public speaking part is not easy for me. I'm an introverted extrovert. So you'll meet me and you'll go, oh my God, she's the most extroverted person I know. But actually I'm introverted. And so standing in front on a stage and being looked at while I speak. What goes through your mind? Does anybody want to hear this? Is it valuable? Will people have takeaways, which is really important for me. And I started working with a coach, and we put together a signature speech. And I just sort of use that as the basis for all my other talks.
Oh, that's awesome. Do you foresee yourself going on like TED Talks in the future?
It could be. Nothing is off limits for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say no to anything.
Hey, there you go. That's the put that stamp on that. I have a desire to actually go on TED Talks, and the more I hear about it, I watch it, I'm like, one of these days. And so I want to get myself to a point where I feel comfortable again, like standing in front of people and don't mind people's eyes on me. When you were talking about being an introvert, extrovert, sometimes I wonder if that's the same situation that I have. Now, shifting gears, you mentioned that you're going to actually be going on a book tour.
I'm launching in my journal on July 1st. With COVID, nobody's doing events. I'm still playing it safe. And, but we're going to do a media blitz for my book, and I'll do virtual interviews for it. So it's called My Sacred Journal, the journal that supports my effing long journey to loving myself.
My Sacred Journal.
My Sacred Journal.
Is the journal available now, or it's coming out, is what you're saying?
It's coming out, and it'll be available at Barnes & Noble and on Amazon, as well as my website.
MARLA Goldberg with 2 R's. GOLDBERRG.com.
Yes.
And My Sacred Journey goes with your book. And so it's a journal where people are able to write out their feelings and emotions, get it out.
Yes. So the tagline is a place to share your hopes, dreams, and desires.
Oh, I love it. I love journaling. I think that it is one of the best things that you can do. If you don't have anyone to talk to, or there's things that sometimes you don't want to really like talk to other people about, or you just feel like there's something you want to get off your chest or your mind, or sometimes just gratitude, like you were talking about earlier. I love these journals. This journal goes with the book. Does that mean that there's specific things that you're writing about?
What I developed the book for is so that you can either, for manifestation, write down what you want. If you're angry or you need to process, write down what you process. So what I like to do personally is I like to take just a notepad, like a spiral notebook, and write the negative stuff. And the reason being is when I'm done, I like to pull it out and burn it. Oh. So I don't want to add that with all my hopes, dreams, and desires. So I like to use this one. And inside the book, I have a lot of quotes on releasing, forgiveness, positive quotes on the benefits of forgiveness, self-acceptance, self-love, crystal healing, what crystals do what, so that people can take them and add them into their spiritual practice. It's just a general journal, not a journal where you answer questions. This is for you to process, put your dreams, your hopes, your desires in, so you can manifest. It's all about the law of attraction with it. And you can go back and read it, when you're done.
I love what you said about writing things down that are negative and burning them, and then using your journal only for the positive and for the things that you want to manifest. I love that.
Yes, it just is another tool to be able to use for manifestation, to clarify what you want. Because sometimes we have an idea of what we want, but until you really are writing out what you want in detail, then you really formulate what you're putting out into the universe. Mm-hmm. Even if it's about forgiveness, wanting to forgive somebody, or things about accepting themselves, learning to accept yourself. Maybe you want to put your self-acceptance journal in the book, in the journal. Self-acceptance is not always easy, looking at yourself naked and really accepting every lump, every bulge, every, wrinkle you might have is not necessarily an easy thing to do. But when you learn to do it and you learn to really accept yourself that way, it's kismet. It's just magic.
I agree. I'm looking at a picture of you actually holding the book, and I love that dress you have on.
Thank you.
It's super cute.
Thanks. The green one, the green and yellow.
It has like what looks like palm leaf kind of on it.
Yes. So I picked that up. I was in Bali last year, and that's where I got that dress.
Yeah, I love it. And it goes with the book cover. It's like a perfect picture.
I know, and it wasn't even planned.
Oh, I love when that happens. Yeah, the journal, I love it because it has like a picture of a road and the road curves or a highway, you know. I
Just like
like
our
that.
lives.
Yes.
Our lives go through lots of winding roads, some of them
Yeah.
rougher.
It's like you definitely put thought into it.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's nice. So Marla, I have to ask you. We're going to
Yes.
come back because I want to talk about your podcast and what it's all about. But before we go there, I have to ask you, what does Marla enjoy doing for fun?
Oh my goodness, there's so much. I'm an artist also. So I'm an abstract painter. I mostly work in acrylic medium, but sometimes watercolor, and I'm starting to play with resin. So I'm really excited about that. I live on the water, so paddleboarding is a passion of mine. Love paddleboarding and kayaking. My husband and I, because we both travel and sometimes we're like ships in the night, I like spending time with him. We just have one of these special relationships that we like each other. We legitimately like each other and we like to spend time with each other.
Oh
So
my
that's it.
gosh. That's
Yeah.
amazing that you said that. Do you know that's what I tell people? And whenever I talk about him, I say, yeah, I actually like him. And they go, well, I hope so. Hopefully you love him. And I'm like, no, like you don't get it. So I can relate to that. You're the first person I've heard say that because I say it all the time.
Yeah, and what's great is my husband gets me. And
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, it makes it so special. And so, we just really have a reverence for each other.
I
Thank
like
you.
that. We hear so often about all the bad marriages and still together today. So it's nice to hear that someone likes their husband and wants to. So I have to ask you, Marla, I know that you wrote a book, and of course, we know that your book is definitely amazing. But I
Thank
have to
you.
ask you, what is your favorite book?
Oh, geez. I have so many.
I
So
know
I
that is a
love,
tough question because it's like, how do I decide? Because there are a lot of good books out there.
I mean, there are a lot of books that helped change my life. So the first book, it was called Journey of the Souls by Peter Richelieu, Richleu, I think it's spelled. I got this book years ago, but it talks about what happens to your soul when you transition. It's a story about this man who was, I think he was a writer, and his brother died in the war, and he was despondent over it and was so depressed. And how this Eastern Indian, I would, like a guru, knocked on his door and had a conversation with him. The character in the book didn't know this man. He told him, he goes, God doesn't exist. I hate God. I'm so angry. How could he do this? And the guy said, well, I'm going to take you on a journey. And he gave him this pill. And he goes, and I'm going to let you remember this. Because most of the time we forget our dreams by the time we wake up.
Mm-hmm.
Once we start getting into our things. But in this book, it was saying this. And then it talked about what happened when we transition, what happens to the soul. And it was a fascinating book. So that was my first big one. And the other one, I just love Don Miguel Ruiz Sr.'s The Four Agreements. And I try to really work at living the four agreements.
Mm-hmm.
Don't take anything personally. Don't assume. Be the best person you can. And the first one, which is be impeccable with your words. But it's really
Oh,
important to be
okay.
impeccable with your words because your words, your thought, your actions, they all are energy. And what happens is when you send negative out into the ethers, it boomerangs back at you tenfold. But when you do it positively, when you're complimentary, when you say positive things, you don't judge, you don't criticize, you don't project, that too comes back to you in a positive way. So it's just so important to be impeccable. Now, look, I understand we're all humans. And something that I do when I realize I'm not being impeccable is I say the phrase clear, delete 3 times. So if I realize that I'm having a negative thought or a projection, and then as soon as I realize that, I go clear, delete, clear, delete, clear, delete. And because I want to stop it from going into the ethers, because I've worked too hard to keep my space clean, to want to have my negative energy come back and smack me in the face.
Oh, yes. I'm going to implement that in my life.
Okay.
Clear, delete, clear, delete, clear, delete. If I end up in a situation where I'm thinking, any kind of negative thoughts or whatever, and I don't want that to go out into the universe. I wanted to go back a moment. You mentioned about the crystals, and I know that as a teacher, What stone or crystal would you recommend for someone to have as like their first one to help with energy?
Quartz, a clear quartz crystal. And the reason
Okay.
being is it clears energy. The other one would be amethyst. Amethyst is another big one. Citrine for abundance and prosperity. You can have smoky quartz. I'm a stone collector. I have
Oh,
like a 3 foot amethyst cathedral. I have another geode. I have rocks all over my house. And
nice.
and here's the thing: when people walk into my house, it feels calm. It feels peaceful, which is
That's
what the rocks
nice.
will do.
And what do you do? Do you go like to rock shows or stone shows?
So you're in Arizona. So there's a show in Tucson. I don't know if they're having it this year. They might have already had it, but they do a crystal show. And, they sell retail and they sell wholesale. Oh my God, some of the specimens that they have are huge,
Oh,
absolutely
I seen
gigantic.
that. I seen a picture of one online and I missed it this year, but I have seen this gigantic one online where a lady was standing next to it and took a picture and I was like, wow.
And remember that when you do pick up a rock, pick out the one that resonates with you.
Mm-hmm.
And you can feel, I would tell you, if you hold your hand over the stones, you might feel a little tingling over the one that's appropriate for you.
That's good to know. So that leads me into your podcast. Can you tell us about your podcast? What's the name of it and what is it about?
So the name is Guided Spirit Conversations. It's on Voice America, the Empowerment Channel. And what I do is I bring on metaphysicians, healers, spiritual leaders, psychics, mediums from all over the world to talk about their modality, what they do, how they work with clients. And so what I did when I developed the podcast is it's twofold. First, I wanted to find people that were incredibly powerful and talented, but who you may or may not have heard of. And then for the audience, I want to make sure that they have takeaways, that through the conversation, that they're given tips, tools, techniques that they can easily incorporate into their life, so that as they're learning about a new modality, they can also learn about a new way to help shift, enhance, or tweak what's going on in their current situation. Those are my two missions for the show. And I also have a charity shout out. So what I do is, at a certain point, it's charity shout out time, and every guest gives me a charity that they support, so I can bring light to that charity as well. So hopefully people listening to the show would say, oh, I really like that charity as well, and I want to donate to it, or I want to send products to it. If it's one that you might need, like let's say there was one for abused women. They might need clothes to start their life over with. Who knows? But
Mm-hmm.
that's why I like to highlight these charities.
Wow, I think that's really awesome. That's good stuff. If people wanted to find you, Marla, where can they find you?
Find me on my website, www.marlagoldberg with 2 R's. That's MARLAGOLDBERRG.com. And you'll see all the modalities that I work with in my practice. I mean, I've trained in 24, but I only work with 4 technically. You'll find out about the podcast, my books, other items that I've developed, in my shop. You can hear my podcasts, the ones that have already been recorded, learn about upcoming events. You can learn about the GCDC, Global Consciousness Development Circle, which is the educational platform we're launching, and our Global Consciousness Summit page as well.
All right. Nice. And the book, the journal, My Sacred Journal.
My Sacred Journal, which is a journal to help you share your hopes, dreams, and desires. But it's a support to my effing long journey to loving myself, a guide to a shorter path, which is partial memoir, partial self-help.
Nice. And we can get the journal and your book on Amazon as well as Barnes & Noble.
Amazon for both books, the journal and the My Effing Long Journey. But I will share with you, I'm in the process of changing the spelling of my name. So My Effing Long Journey is still under Marla Goldberg with 1 R, where the journal is under 2 R's. It's an energetic thing. It's in numerology. I was told by a numerologist to add an extra R into my first name or my last name to raise the resonancy. And so I said, oh, I'll change the last name. My husband's not too happy about it, but he'll support me on it. And then COVID came, so I couldn't go to the clerk's office to get it changed. So half of my things are in Goldberg, and the other half are Berrg. So
Does that mean he's going to change his last name too to the extra
not at
R?
all.
Oh,
No.
okay. He's like, what is going on?
Sort of.
Marla, I really enjoyed talking with you.
Is I'd love to just implore or ask that people be considerate of other people, be accepting of other people. First of all, we're all born the same way. We all die the same way. And when I say die, we transition. I mean, we might be murdered or die under illness, but our spirit moves on. So whether it's wearing a mask to be considerate because you don't know if somebody has an autoimmune disease or not, it's just about, treating somebody the way you want to be treated. And so that's what I'd like to leave with.
Well, that's good stuff, Marla.
Thank you.
That's good.
Wow, you guys, I really enjoyed talking with Marla. It was very interesting. And thanks, Marla, for coming on the show and being a part of Authentic Talks. You guys, you gotta love it. My effing long journey to loving my life, a guide to a shorter path. That's Marla's book. You can pick that book up now. You can order that book on Amazon or wherever you can purchase books. Also, you guys, don't forget that My Sacred Journal dropped on July 1st, which is really exciting. We're now able to have a customized journal, and I think that that's really awesome. If you want to connect with Marla, please look in the show notes. We have all of the information from Marla located there. You guys, self-care is so important. Be on the lookout. Check out her Facebook group, and you guys know that I am huge. I love taking care of myself, and I love sharing tips on self-care and having guests that try to provide tips for us. And we're all in this together, you guys. We're all in this together. You guys take care. Be safe. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm Shantae with Authentic Talks.